just want to thank everybody who has joined this. Especially, I see my long-term, client and friend, my sister Tebi, who has joined. Thank you so much, Tebi, for spending your time with us this evening. And good evening to all of you women in PR in Ghana, and happy Women's Day for the 8th, as well as Independence Day today. It's really great to celebrate this with you. So I do not take it for granted that you are spending your holiday to actually tune in and have this kind of meeting. It shows how dedicated and how serious we are about our profession and wanting to empower ourselves all the time. I have been given the opportunity to address you under this topic of women in PR as catalysts for change, exercising strategic influence and executive authority in organizational leadership. Just before I start, I just want to set the context of who we are as women, especially women in PR. We shape narratives, and that's something that I don't want us to actually ever forget. We influence decisions, we protect reputation, and increasingly, we help organizations find their voice. In a very, very complex world, we have seen what's happening around us in terms of, the geopolitics and everything that is actually impacting our lives on a day-to-day. So tonight, I really, really want us to reflect on something deeper, not just our role in public relations, but the power we already have and the power that we already hold as catalyst of change. So I've decided to strip, the big words. I mean, the title that I'm supposed to speak on is quite a mouthful, and just really, really strip it down to the basics, because that's what we do as communicators. We really make communication simple, because that's something that we're supposed to be doing on a day-to-day basis. So what I want us to really, really reflect on and look in is the power we already hold. And it really, really begins with how we see ourselves as women, as leaders, as mothers, all the various roles that we actually occupy in our day-to-day. I have been to Ghana a couple of times. I always say in my previous life or in my next life, I will be born as a Ghanaian. I love your country. And my Ghanaian name is Abina. So I really, really feel at home when I'm there. But when I think of your country, the first thing that comes to mind, it is not the boardroom. When I really, really plan my trips and I get invited, it's not me coming into a boardroom to attend any of my clients' meetings and all of those things. It is actually the vibe. It is the market across Accra. I mean, we all know the Molekoa market, which is the biggest market across West Africa. And what you will notice is something very, very powerful in that market. It is that it is a woman that actually run that ecosystem. So as you can see there in the background of my picture, how big and how vast this market is. I mean, you walk around that, you will lose a few kilos because it is hot, it's sweaty, it's packed, but all across there, it's women setting prices, it's women negotiating deals, it's women managing supply chain, women are moving, the entire economies. Before we even make our first cup of coffee, for us who saying we are executives and that's what we do for a living. So women are already doing what we know, it comes natural to them. So leadership really, it begins wherever responsibility meets courage. We are already, set up for this world of leadership. It's up to us to be able to rise to it, for us to make sure that we take the responsibility. So we need to ensure that as we discuss tonight, how women in PR can take leadership, we already practice and we already put into translation what we are already doing. So it's something that it's there. It's a strategic influence that we already own and we already have. And it's something that we just need to be able to execute with much clarity. The way that I see it is that leadership is identity. Leadership is not something we switch on in boardrooms. It is something we embody every single day. We make decisions when we wake up to say, today I'm going to get up, I am going to brush my teeth, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to get on that road to go to my work and execute my responsibility. All those decisions are decisions that anybody who wants to progress in life do make. So sometimes, as I always say, we need to strip away this big expectation and this big words to think that it has to do something that is out of us. It's something that we need to attain. So we need to really, really remember who we are and ground ourselves in that identity, that it is something we embody every day. When you advocate for fairness also, when you challenge harmful narratives, when you mentor young women entering the profession. Josephine mentioned that as part of the work of women in PR is to mentor and to bring the young professional into the system. How do we do that? So we are already, shaping future leadership. And that's something that we really, really need to be proud of, need to make sure that we remind ourselves of, and not wait for somebody else to remind you of who you are. But the other important thing is that every woman in this virtual room carries two identities. The one defined by your job title and the one defined by your impact. The fortunate thing, or unfortunate for those people who wear their title, is that history does not remember titles. It remembers people who influence system. And I would really encourage everybody that is on this call and who is actually watching this to read the book, The Title as Leader, How to Get Things Done When You Are Not in Charge. It's a book that is written by Nan S. Russell. And that's just to empower yourself and to also see and understand that you are not in this world alone, trying to really, really create relevance and try to really, really influence every area of your life wherever you are. You don't have to have a position of a CEO. You don't have to have a position of, a chairperson. Where you are, you already are a leader. So you need to decide the kind of identity that you are going to put out there and that you'd want people to remember you by. So the responsibility of women leaders, if we are saying this is what we are aspiring to, and those who are already ahead of us, is when we rise into influence, we do something powerful. And that's something that we need to realize, is that there is responsibility that we carry as we climb this corporate ladder, as we open doors, as we are out there, we wake up in the morning, we are standing on the streets selling, we are already doing something that is powerful, because some of our leaders, some of our mothers, that is the choice between having food on the table for their children or, oh, I'm just going to sleep and wait for somebody to give me a handout. So those are the kind of things that we need to be mindful of. When you rise into influence, you also expand the definition of leadership itself. It becomes broader than what we always think of, especially in the traditional way of thinking of a leader. It's somebody who everybody just stands out there and follow. In the majority leadership, it's supposed to become more collaborative, especially when it's women leadership. We know that we do have those few, the minority of us ladies, if we have to be true to ourselves, that still also struggle with power, that push others down. We have the pull head down syndrome and all of those things. So we don't want to all paint everybody as, we know what, we have made it, we understand it. If we are on top, we will do all this amazing thing. There are certain, blind spots that we need to work on ourselves so that we could be better for the next generation. So in the majority, leadership, when it's actually directed and when it's women who are in leadership, it's supposed to become more collaborative, more empathetic, socially aware, and inclusive. Because by nature, we're supposed to be nurturers. We understand what it is to groom, to grow people up, and to ensure that we have a healthy society. So that's what we need to ensure, that we continuously, wherever we are in our business, we are making sure that those who come next and those who we are within, the same space with, they become better than we are. So why women in PR? Why are we natural catalysts? Back to the sort of like the topic, why we are here, or the theme that you are looking for or working towards this year as Women in PR, the Ghana chapter, is that we are uniquely as PR professional, we are positioned to influence organizations. we are really at the intersection of these key things. The 6 key things that I've outlined here in terms of we are able to influence business strategy. We are really there to help and shape and to understand public perception, the brand identity. We influence how brands are seen, if we are given the position. So our power, if we are allowed the space and if we are able to really, really create that opportunity for ourselves, these are the things that we can be able to do. Be able to really, really gain stakeholder trust, influence culture, and reputation above all is quite important. I always say with my clients and everywhere I go is that reputation is in everything that we do. So people should not look at it as something that is only belonging to the C-suite. Your reputation, wherever you are, whether you are a lady that is selling on the streets, whether you are an executive, it's who you are. You need to protect it with everything that you are, because you yourself are a brand. So you need to guard it with all that you have. So we have that power as PR professional. However, as much as we are in a female-dominated industry, we are in that industry without equal power. That is the reality that we are living in. And statistics show us that women make up about 70% of the global PR workforce. Let that sink in. 70% of the global PR force is by females, yet most leadership roles remain male dominated. We would know, and I've seen this through my travels on the continent. I will come into various markets, have meetings with various, PR agencies, and meet with different clients. You'll find that most of the leaders and those people who are really, really in charge, whether it's the CEO, the GM, and all of those are males. 61% of the PR boardrooms are still led primarily by men. And we know most people, because also globally the world is female, 91% of professionals, we believe that more must be done to ensure women move into leadership roles. So there is a lot right now. We have become more vocal in terms of diversity and inclusion, and pushing for us to actually not just be doers, for us to be given more responsibility, and for us to occupy more positions within organizations. So this is an ongoing conversation, because we are now seeing the power and the benefit also of why women should occupy roles of responsibility. So this is something that we need to be aware of. But also when you look at the global world outside of our industry, the slide that I've just showed you now, it was looking at our industry. But when you're looking at global leadership gaps, women, they occupy or they represent 43% of the workforce, but only 30.6% of leadership roles. So already you can see that the scales are not equal. Again, only 6% of CEOs worldwide are women, and just 8.4% of boards are chaired by women. So this is a very, very interesting, paradox in our industry, is that as much as we are a female-led, industry, as much as the world population is mainly women, a lot of positions are still handled by men. And these are positions that we are seeing in boardrooms, in executive committees, in ownership structures, that men are still the ones who are ruling that particular world. And it means that the problem is not a capability issue. So we should not stress about that. We should not be seeing ourselves as less of. The issue is structural access to influence, and that's what we need to look into. And I guess that's why we're having this conversation today, to be able to look at how can we empower ourselves to challenge the structure for us to be able to occupy the rightful places, and the places that make influence, because already we can see we have it in us to be able to make such decisions. According to Forbes magazine, this is actually the latest issue that is out now, the March issue. They quoted a very, very interesting statistics that they took from the World Economic Forum. It's a report that was on equity, diversity, and inclusion. In the report, they're saying that women represent 58% of self-employed population in Africa. That is 58%. Female entrepreneurship, they rate that it is the highest in the world, which is around 28%, and women contribute an estimated 13% to Africa's GDP. So closing the gender gap, it could unlock approximately 2.5 trillion in economic growth for Africa. So those are staggering numbers. Those are numbers that should make anybody stand up and see if our continent, if this continent of Africa, if it could unlock women leadership and economic participation, it could generate trillions in economic growth. So that says to us that women leadership is not just a social issue. It's not us just wanting to force ourselves into tables. It's not us just wanting to be equal to men. It is an economic strategy for the continent. It will help the continent to be better in terms of governance, in terms of ensuring that there is equal employment, and also just socially, we are able to care for us. There's a statistics that if you employ one woman, you are feeding about 30 soul mouths, because that's how we are as women. We care for others. So you can see why this is important, why we have to worry ourselves about this important part of, bringing the power that we already have to be recognized and to be on the table. So with all of this that is happening around us, some of them that might look like challenges, what are the things that we can do as women in PR, the women who can influence? As I said, we influencing narrative. We are the people that are able to negotiate, be able to make deals happen in terms of communicating what those look like. What is it that we could actually do to make sure that we build our own influence? The first thing that I really, really think we need to do, especially in this digital world that we are now living in, and as us as PR communicators wanting to elevate our profession to move away from just being, at the back and the sideline, is to master the business. We really, really need to learn to start to speak the language of business. Our service, our role as PR professional is not just a soft skill. We need to ensure that it's a skill that helps people to come together, to make deals, to move, to shape things, and to really, really create cohesiveness. So we need to understand, how do we monetize that? How do we speak in a way that a business would understand if that their reputation is not in order, what they lose in terms of value. So we need to make sure that we are able to understand revenue models, policy environment, risk exposure, and stakeholder ecosystem. We need to move upstream. This is quite important. We are not just order takers, good people. I always say to my team here at Magna Carta that we are not an agency, we are consultants. So we are not here to take orders for people to then tell us, all right, we've written a release, go publish it. We need to understand what were the decisions that were made for us to end up writing this particular release. Why are we communicating this? So we need to wait for decisions to be made. We need to participate where decisions are being shaped. We need to be in the room before the announcement. So it's a big challenge for us who are in the consulting space, for us who are in the corporates. I've had my client also from Ghana. She's here from MTN. So it's the rooms that we occupy. Where are we sitting in those big corporates? Are we included? Are we in the exco, where we can be able to raise our voice and challenge some of the decisions, because we understand the broader ecosystem in terms of the impact of how those decisions will be received and the change that it will have on people's lives. We need to look at reputation as a strategic asset. As I said, I always say reputation is in everything that we do. It's not just something that you really remember when there is a crisis. Reputation is no longer a communication outcome. It is a business asset. As communicators, we are custodians of trust. So we need to make sure that our organizations, the people that we actually represent and we advise, they understand that. The fourth thing that we need to look into is we need to build authority through insights. Ladies, we need to ensure that we empower ourselves. We need to make sure that we really, really are in tune with what's happening around us. Leaders listen to those who bring insight. It's not just about your opinion. So we need to be following latest trends, consuming news, understanding what is happening in terms of geopolitics, what is the impact that will have on our clients when we wake up tomorrow morning. What do we say to them? Because, we have to be that person that is able to then come into the room and say, this is what this means for the organization, the so what factor. If you're able to solve that for your organization or for your clients, you become a valuable asset to them, and you then end your place at the seat of the table. Then lastly, the one thing that I really, really believe that will help us to really build our influence is claiming our voice. So many of us, we wait to be invited to lead. However, it often requires stepping forward before permission arrives. I've known and I've seen, and I'm encouraged because also it takes knowing yourself to be able to do that. As I said, my client, a long-term client of mine, is also on this call. And from time to time, she will remind me to say, when I met you, you were this quiet woman who was just sitting there observing, but I knew there was something in you. And it takes such a person who then says, there is something in that person. I want to hear the voice. Can I hear what they have to say? We need to build our voice. We need to be confident. If I was in the room with you today, I would ask the question of how many of you have had an idea that is yours, but got presented by somebody else, and it was owned and it was applauded. But because of the position you occupy, or because you always see yourself as, oh, I'm shy, I can't be the one who does this, I don't want to upstage my leader, you then sit back. We need to start to be very, very empowered. I always say to my team, I now have a very, very young workforce, and I'm encouraged by them because this Gen Zs, they're very, very bold. they own their space. They would not go through the hierarchy of, well, I'm going to wait for my senior account director. If they have an idea, they position it. So they are already realizing the importance of actually owning their space, claiming their voice, and ensuring that they get recognized. There are ways of also doing it so that you are not seen as somebody who's arrogant. So I'm not saying go out there, bulldoze your way, and be the smarty pants. You need to have the sort of like the foresight and the discernment to know how to do it. But it's quite important that you really, really develop your voice, because if you don't do that, somebody's going to own your idea. Somebody's going to take over and take the position that that was rightfully yours. So work on that. So in conclusion, I would like to remind you of somebody that you would know. This is a powerful woman, writer, poet that you guys as Ghanaians would know, Ama-Ata Aido, who said, one must never underestimate the power of the people to bring about change. And I could not agree with her more, especially for this particular conversation that we have on this day that is leading to Women's Month, International Women's Day, and the month of March celebrating women. Is us as women, especially as women in PR, we have the power to really, really bring that change. It's within us to occupy the space because of our profession and the value it brings. We are, as I've said, at the center of helping businesses to own the voice, to really, really protect the reputation. So let's not be shy. Let's not, put ourselves in the back banner. Let's move forward with insight. Let's move forward empowered to know that we have actually done all we can to be able to occupy that space. With that, thank you so much, ladies. I hope this was useful, that you would have learned something from this. But yeah, thank you so much for your attention.